Okay, so today we're doing a deep dive on something I found that I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
It's called BOI reporting for LLCs.
Uh-huh.
When I first saw this, I was like, oh, this is going to be a snooze fest. But then I
Yeah.
started reading into it, and it's actually surprisingly relevant even if you don't own an LLC.
Right.
Like, I don't own an LLC.
Right.
So, this is something that I think is relevant to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess maybe to get started, like, what is this?
Okay.
Like, what is BOI reporting, and what does it have to do with LLCs?
So BOI reporting is beneficial owner information reporting. And what that means is basically the government wants to know who owns and controls companies. And this is part of a
Okay.
larger piece of legislation called the Corporate Transparency Act.
Okay.
And so, this has been a long time coming. There's been a lot of shell companies, a lot of anonymous companies,
Yeah.
and it's been hard to track down who owns what and who's controlling what.
Yeah. So it's almost like they're forcing open those Russian nesting dolls so you can
Yeah.
see who the real owner is.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
So that's what they're trying to do.
So why is that so important, though?
Well, I think it's important for a lot of reasons.
Okay.
One of the main reasons is to prevent financial crime, right? So things like money laundering, tax evasion, terrorist financing even.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So all these things are really hard to track when you don't know who owns the company.
Right, because you don't know where the money's going.
Exactly. So if you
Yeah.
can track the money, you can track the crime.
Right.
So that's one of the big reasons why this is so important.
That makes a lot of sense. And so the listener sent in an interesting snippet, and they mentioned this thing called the BOI Reporting Form.
Yes.
And it sounds like it's for new LLCs.
Yeah.
So how does this form play into this whole LLC formation process?
So basically, whenever you form a new LLC, now you have to file this form. And it's basically collecting information on who the beneficial owners of the company are.
Got it.
So name, address, identification number, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And, it can get a little bit tricky, right? Because sometimes the beneficial owner might not be the person who's listed on the company formation documents.
Right. That makes sense. So, like, there could be someone behind the scenes
Exactly.
who's really pulling the strings.
Exactly, yeah. And so they're trying to figure out who that person is.
Okay, so to comply with this act, like, what are the practical steps that a new LLC owner would have to take? Like, what exactly do they need to be reporting?
So basically, they need to figure out who their beneficial owners are,
Yeah.
gather all the necessary information, like I said, name, address, ID number, all that stuff. And then they have to submit this form to the government.
Okay.
And, it's kind of a pain, but it's what you have to do now to be in compliance.
So it sounds like this Corporate Transparency Act is really like shaking things up, forcing LLCs to be more transparent about who's really in control.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just about preventing financial crime, right? I mean,
Oh, really? Okay.
there's other implications here.
Okay, like what?
Well, for instance, investors.
Yeah.
They might be a lot more cautious about putting money into a company if they don't know who's really behind it.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
They might not want to risk their money if they don't know who they're dealing with.
Yeah, it's risky,
It is, yeah.
especially if you don't know.
Exactly.
So how would they even find that out, though?
Well, that's where the due diligence process comes in, right? So before an investor puts money into a company, they're going to do their research, right? They're going to look into the company's background, who owns it, who controls it.
So they would look at this BOI report.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
So that's one way that this could affect things.
And then, you know what? It's not just investors, right? It's the public, too, right? Like, people are going to be able to look at these BOI reports.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's going to change how they view companies.
Absolutely.
I mean, for better or for worse.
Right. For
Yeah.
better or for worse. Exactly.
So this is really like shining a light on all these dark corners and making it a lot harder to hide things.
Exactly.
And I think that's something that everyone should be aware
I agree.
So, yeah, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It was really interesting to learn about this.
Yeah, it's a fascinating topic.
It is.
It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see how this impacts businesses and just like the overall transparency of the business world.
Yeah, me too.
All right, so that's it for this deep dive. Until next time.
See ya!
Bye.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for this deep dive. Until next time.
See ya. Bye. Meh.